So, welcome back to Explorer. I want to thank you for joining. Here we talk geopolitics on how the continent of Africa interacts with strategic partners from around the world, from Washington, Moscow, Beijing, Delhi, the European Union in Brussels, and more importantly, other strategic partners, including emerging Turkey. So, you know how we do it here. We don't keep you hostage. We don't tie you down. We value your time. We just go straight into this analysis and more perspective. The country of South Africa has made it clear, irrespective of the perception that the global community, and more importantly, the United States of America has regards to this particular African nation, it's not going to change. The aspect of non-aligned, including also that the country of South Africa has decided that a particular strategic relationship with the country of Russia is not going to go anywhere soon, irrespective of what the United States of America would think with regards to this particular relationship. We've seen South Africa and other African countries came under tremendous pressure during the Russian-Ukrainian war, which is still ongoing at the moment, and how African countries stood on the sideline. Some were really struggling. We saw bold nations like Eritrea came out and voted against the United Nations resolution at the time, and South Africa was threatened and punished to an extent, talking about removing them from AGOA and making sure that South Africa's relationship with the continent of Africa, and more importantly with the United States of America, came under review. We've seen US senators to an extent struggle and try to make sure that South Africa should be punished. But again, we see this relationship is growing strength by strength.
Moses Kotano and JB Max, people who have been very heroic in their role in placing and fighting for freedom in our country. We will also use this context, as you are aware, to continue to renew our bilateral relations with the Russian Federation in relations to many aspects of the economy, agriculture, space exploration, natural resources, digital technologies, you name it. We want to continue to strengthen the existing relationship between the two countries that its foundation was laid by the blood of our fallen heroes like JB Max and Moses Kotane, who are lying here.
What the United States of America fails to understand, and other strategic partners of South Africa and African nations, is that the continent of African countries, more importantly those that were fighting for their survival in terms of independence, and they recognize the relationship that Russia and how Russia was very instrumental to an extent in their survival during that particular period. So it's not just gonna something not going to happen that they will just forget that particular coordination, that support, that recognition. Russia to an extent recognized the independence of a number of those countries during those heated years in the history of the continent of Africa. So when we talk about that South Africa should be careful on its relationship with the country of Russia, I think that's falling in deaf ears. This is not going to change. So if strategic partners like the United States of America and other European fringe powers should understand that the continent of Africa does have historical ties with Russia, and that will not change irrespective of what is going on between Russia and Ukraine. And more importantly, African nations were to an extent put on the spot to choose between Russia and Ukraine during that particular Ukraine war. But again, it brought a lot of commotion and friction between the geopolitical environment on how the vote at the United Nations exposed a number of weaknesses, and we saw how Africa's strategic partners stood on one side and a number of African countries, like I said, stood on the other side.
He's one of South Africa's central allies, especially in the ever-shifting geopolitical landscape. The two nations are keen to shape the world order based on multipolar principles.
We want to continue with this strengthening of our bilateral relations with Russia, and we will also engage on a number of geopolitical issues. As you are aware, South Africa played a key role in the Africa Peace Initiative for Russia to be invited to be on the table of any peace formula or negotiation with regards to the conflict with Ukraine. So we'll also continue to exchange ideas on that, but also on the Agenda 2063, it's our contribution to silencing the guns in the continent, and also the role that both countries can collaborate in at BRICS to contribute to various initiatives that are aimed for the development of the global south, including collaboration at the G20 level and also at other multilateral forums like the UN, the WTO, and many other forums that remains very important, particularly at this stage where unilateralism is raising its head again in global affairs.
Minister Lamola also paid a courtesy visit to the memorial centers in Moscow dedicated to the South African freedom fighters J.B. Marks and Moses Kotane.
We are here in remembrance of Moses Kotane and J.B. Marks, people who have been very heroic in their role in placing and fighting for freedom in our country. We will also use this context, as you are aware, to continue to renew our bilateral relations with the Russian Federation in relations to many aspects of the economy, agriculture, space exploration, natural resources, digital technologies, you name it. We want to continue to strengthen the existing relationship between the two countries that its foundation was laid by the blood of our fallen heroes like J.B. Marks and Moses Kotane, who are lying here.
Meanwhile, Moscow and Pretoria, key members of BRICS, G20 and other key multilateral bodies. Kylie Kumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
But again, the country of Russia has also moved so fast to engage strategic countries across the Sahel region, and more importantly, Russia's footprint across the continent of Africa is not going to slow. Why is that? Because these countries are beginning to realize that they need support, they need to strengthen their security, they need to grow their particular technological aspect in terms of their military, and they want to be exposed to information technology. So we cannot just eat our cake and have it at the same time. So the relationship between, I just want to emphasize it, between Russia and the country of South Africa, including those countries in the Sahel, it's not going to stop, because if you look at how their strategic partner like the United States of America and Europe have been responding based on sanctions and reviewing these countries on particular coordination, then you leave no other option than these countries to look towards China and Russia.
Talking partnership and global affairs. South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola, has wrapped up his visit to Russia. Building on previous meetings, he held talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow, discussing bilateral ties, but also United Nations Security Council reform. In an exclusive interview with the SABC, he said Moscow supports greater representation of the global South.
Russia supported the call by the African Union and also by South Africa to transform or reform the UN Security Council for Africa to have 2 seats in the UN Security Council. And we conveyed our message to Mr. Lavrov to thank him for this support, because once the voice also come from the members of the P5 of the Security Council, it has got added weight. So we are very thankful for that. It's a sign of the continuous cooperation between Russia and South Africa in these multilateral platforms.
Lamola stressed the UN should be used for resolving global issues and development. The conflict in Ukraine was also discussed, and Lamola called for an inclusive dialogue, bringing all parties to the negotiating table. He pointed to South Africa being part of the African Peace Initiative, when 7 African presidents visited Russia and Ukraine in June 2023 to attempt to broker peace.
We were the first continent and the country to say both must sit on the negotiation table and that there must be dialogue to resolve this conflict. We are glad that at long last, now the US has also come around to realize that this conflict cannot be resolved without Russia being on the table.
Lamola said the South African president will be hosting his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky next week in South Africa.
And China, to an extent, has engaged these particular countries within this region. So it's important for the United States of America to recognize that South Africa's particular position with Russia is not going to go anywhere soon. We saw the particular very important role that South Africa played with regards to bringing peace to the country of Russia and Ukraine. At the time, it was called a begging mission, and all of a sudden we begin to see what's going to happen on why the country of South Africa, to an extent, told the country of Ukraine at the time that it's all going to boil down to peace, that nothing is going to happen without peace, and you two need to come on the same table. And at the time, it was leveled as a begging mission, like I said, that the African countries were going there to talk on how to allow grains to go. But it wasn't only an African problem. It was just Africa being part of the peace discussion. Again, like the Minister of South Africa, the foreign minister, so the pointer, Mr. Lamola, have said, there will not be peace without Russia being on the table. That's what we are saying. So South Africa is winning to an extent if we consider that particular aspect.
Minister Lamola's visit to Moscow underscores the enduring diplomatic ties between South Africa and Russia. To deepen those, the two countries hold meetings of the Intergovernmental Committee on Trade and Economic Cooperation. In Moscow, Lamola co-chaired the 18th session to facilitate comprehensive cooperation across key sectors, including trade and investment, agriculture, education, digital technologies and transport. Strengthening economic partnerships and exploring opportunities is believed to be the key for mutual growth.
The relationship is growing, and we want to strengthen that. We want to see it growing from strength to strength, and it should continue to be mutually beneficial between the two countries. And one of the most exciting part is from our space agency, whom they said they are also sharing with their Russian counterparts information that and the skills and knowledge that is very beneficial to both countries.
And in Moscow, Minister Lamola paid tribute to South Africa's liberation heroes J.B. Marks and Moses Kotane by visiting memorials at the Novodevichy Cemetery. Dasha Cherneshova, SABC News, Moscow.
So it is a strategic time in the continent of African history, and African countries must, to an extent, select their partners with regards to strategic relationship. There's no other way around it. So these are critical times in the continent history, and we will continue to see South Africa building relations and those countries engaging China. And as we see how the United States of America has taken a nationalistic and combative stand, which to an extent is repelling those countries across the region. Let me know in the comment section what you think regards to how South Africa's relationship with the country of Russia is not going anywhere soon, and why these are critical times in the country of South Africa's history, considering the trade issues with the country of the United States of America, and how AGOA is on life support at the moment. And we continue to see what's going to be happening in regards to this particular relationship. The notion that the United States of America can frown South Africa's coordination and relationship with the country of Russia is laughable. Why am I saying that's laughable? Because we fail to understand the historical ties that Russia had with a number of countries in the continent of Africa. In those days where no one recognized these nations, no one was on the side of these countries across the continent of Africa. The Russians stood to the African side. And today you expect that they should abandon Russia in regards to I think that Africa countries, partners like the United States and other fringe powers across the world should learn to respect Africa's own position, because they're not going to abandon the relationship all of a sudden because the United States of America is not happy or does not want it. So these are times where options are on the table, and Africa, to an extent the country of South Africa at the moment, will not. They will instead proceed to leverage this particular coordination and relationship and the technology need that they need at this particular time to scale in terms of their collaboration. So the United States of America and European partners must learn to respect South Africa's position in regards to Russia, its concern, and China. More importantly, the BRICS countries' partnership with the continent of Africa and South Africa. But from my perspective, talking to geopolitical analysts around the world, I think this relationship is just going to go stronger, and the United States of America should learn to live with Russia and South Africa's relationship. For now, I will be looking forward to meeting you soon in our next episode. Have a good day. Bye-bye.